The stars were cold and distant when the research ship Stellar Dawn found the massive object floating in empty space. Captain Deho Park stood on his bridge, staring at the main screen with wide eyes. In all his years exploring the galaxy, he had never seen anything like this. "How big is it?" he asked his crew. Jinwoo Lee, the young sensor technician, checked his readings twice before answering. "Almost 3 kilometers long, Captain. It's huge." The object looked like a ship, but it was unlike any design they knew. It was dark gray and covered with strange patterns. No lights blinked on its surface. No energy came from it at all. It just floated there like a giant piece of dead metal. Dr. Hana Kim walked onto the bridge carrying her tablet. She was the team's lead scientist, and her job was to study old things from space. "Any idea how old it is?" she asked. "The computer says it could be thousands of years old," Jinwoo replied. "Maybe more." Professor Eugene Choi joined them. He was an old man with gray hair who knew more about ancient history than anyone else on the ship. "This could be from the precursor wars," he said quietly. Everyone went silent. The precursor wars were just stories, legends about a great battle that happened long before any of the known races reached the stars. Most people thought they were just myths. "Are you sure?" Captain Park asked. "Look at the design." Professor Choi pointed at the screen. "It doesn't match any ship we know, and it's been out here for so long that space dust has covered it completely." Dr. Hana studied the images carefully. The ship was enormous and clearly very old. Its hull was scarred and marked by countless years in space. "We need to board it," she said. Captain Park frowned. "Is that safe?" "It's not giving off any power readings," Jinwoo reported. "It's completely dead. That's what worries me," the captain replied. "Something that big doesn't just die and float around for thousands of years without a reason." Dr. Hana looked at him with determination. "This could be the greatest discovery in galactic history. We have to investigate." The captain thought for a moment. His job was to keep everyone safe, but he also knew how important this could be. "Okay," he said finally. "But we go in carefully. Full protective gear and constant communication." 2 hours later, a small shuttle approached the massive ship. Dr. Hana sat with 3 other team members, all wearing heavy spacesuits. Tai-Min Ryu, their security officer, carried a plasma rifle, even though the ship appeared empty. Miran Kang, their chief engineer, had her tools ready to study any technology they found. So Young Nam, their language expert, hoped to find some kind of writing or symbols. "I'm seeing what looks like a docking bay," the shuttle pilot announced. "It's big enough for our ship." As they flew closer, they could see the bay doors were already open. The inside was dark and empty. "That's strange," Miran said. "Why would the doors be open in space?" "Maybe they've been broken for centuries," Taemin suggested, but his voice sounded worried. They landed inside the bay with a soft bump. The artificial gravity still worked, which surprised everyone. "How is there gravity if the ship is dead?" Dr. Hana asked. Miran checked her instruments. "There's some kind of backup power running through the ship. Very low level, but it's there." They stepped out of the shuttle and onto the deck of the ancient ship. Their lights cut through the darkness, showing metal walls covered in dust. The air was thin but breathable. "This place is huge," So Young whispered. They walked through corridors that seemed to go on forever. The walls were smooth metal with strange patterns carved into them. Some looked like writing, but it wasn't like any language they knew. "These symbols are everywhere," So Young said, taking pictures. "But I can't read any of it." They found rooms filled with equipment they didn't understand. Some machines were clearly very advanced, but their design was different from anything in their databases. Other tools looked almost primitive. "This doesn't make sense," Miran said, studying a control panel. "Some of this technology is more advanced than ours, but other parts look like they were made by people who just learned to work with metal." Dr. Hana examined what looked like living quarters. The rooms were designed for creatures about their size, but the furniture was strange. "Whoever built this ship was similar to us in size and shape," she noted. They spent hours exploring. Every room they entered revealed new mysteries. They found what looked like a medical center with beds sized for bipedal creatures. They discovered storage areas filled with containers they couldn't open. Most surprising of all, they found a huge chamber filled with tall metal cylinders arranged in perfect rows. "What are those?" Timon asked, pointing his light at the cylinders. Miran walked closer and ran her scanner over one of them. "I'm reading some kind of life support system. These might be sleeping chambers." "You mean someone might still be alive in there?" Dr. Hana asked. "The readings are too faint to tell," Miran replied. "But these chambers are definitely designed to keep something alive for a very long time." Professor Choi, who had been quiet for most of the exploration, finally spoke. "We need to find the ship's central computer or control room. If this really is a precursor ship, there might be information that could change everything we know about galactic history." They continued, deeper into the ship. The corridors seemed to stretch forever, and they began to feel like tiny insects crawling through the body of some sleeping giant. Finally, they found what they were looking for: a massive chamber filled with glowing screens and complex machinery. Even though most of the ship was dark, this room had power. "The computer core is still active," Miran said with amazement. "After all these years, it's still running." Jinwoo, who had stayed on the Stellar Dawn to monitor them, spoke through their radios. "Captain, I'm picking up strange energy readings from your location. The ship is doing something." Dr. Hana looked around nervously. "What kind of something? I don't know. But power levels throughout the ship are slowly increasing." The team looked at each other with concern. They had assumed the ship was completely dead, but something was waking up. "Maybe we triggered some kind of automatic system when we boarded," Professor Choi suggested. "Or maybe," Timon said, gripping his weapon tighter, "we woke up whatever's been sleeping in those chambers." Dr. Hana made a decision. "We're scientists. This is why we're here. Whatever's happening, we need to understand it." She approached the main console in the computer room. The screens showed symbols and patterns that meant nothing to her, but they were clearly active. Information was flowing across them like water. "So, Young, can you make sense of any of this?" The language expert studied the screens carefully. "It's completely unlike anything I've ever seen, but there's a pattern to it. It's definitely a language, not just random symbols." As they watched, the symbols on the screen began to change. New patterns appeared, and the computer seemed to be processing vast amounts of information. "It's learning," Miran said quietly. "The computer is analyzing something." "Analyzing what?" Dr. Hana asked. Jinwoo's voice came through the radio again, and this time he sounded scared. "Captain, you need to see this. The ship is scanning us, really scanning us. It's looking at our ship, our technology, even our bodies." The team stood in the glowing computer room of the ancient ship, realizing that they were no longer just observers. Whatever intelligence controlled this vessel was now studying them, and they had no idea what it would do with the information it was gathering. The often greatest archaeological discovery in history had just become something much more dangerous and exciting than any of them had imagined. 3 days had passed since they first boarded the ancient ship. The Stellar Dawn now floated alongside the massive vessel, connected by docking tubes. More crew members had joined the exploration team, and they were making discoveries that challenged everything they thought they knew about galactic history. Dr. Hana walked through a corridor that seemed cleaner than it had been the day before. She stopped and looked around carefully. The dust that had covered everything was somehow less thick. The metal walls looked brighter. "Miran," she called into her radio. "Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" Miran's voice crackled back. "You mean the fact that this ship seems to be cleaning itself?" "Yes, I noticed that too." The chief engineer was in the ship's power center, studying systems that made no sense to her. The technology was both incredibly advanced and strangely simple at the same time. Some components looked like they could have been built yesterday, while others seemed ancient beyond measure. "The power levels keep increasing," she reported. "Whatever we did when we first came aboard, it started something. The ship is slowly waking up." In another part of the vessel, So Young Nam was working with a team of linguistic experts who had joined them from the Stellar Dawn. They had found rooms covered with symbols and writing, but decoding it was proving nearly impossible. "Look at this pattern," she said to her assistant. "It appears in every room we've explored. It's not decorative. It means something important." The symbols were carved deep into the metal walls. Some looked like star maps, others like mathematical equations, but many were completely alien to them. "I think it's a story," So Young continued. "These symbols tell the history of whoever built this ship, but the language is so old that I can barely recognize any of it as being related to any modern tongue." Taimin Ryu, the security officer, was becoming more nervous with each passing hour. He had explored military vessels before, and this ship felt different. It felt alive. "Captain Park," he spoke into his communicator, "I recommend we limit the number of people on the ship. Something doesn't feel right." Captain Park's voice came back from the stellar dawn. "What's your concern, Taimin?" "The ship is responding to our presence. Corridors are cleaner. Power levels are rising. And I swear some of the doors we found locked yesterday are now open." Dr. Hana heard this conversation and decided to investigate. She made her way to the chamber filled with the tall metal cylinders they had discovered on the first day. What she found there made her heart race. Several of the cylinders now had lights blinking on their surfaces. Green and blue indicators showed that something was happening inside them. "Miran, you need to get to the cylinder chamber immediately," she called. When the engineer arrived, she ran her scanners over the active cylinders. "These are definitely life support systems," she confirmed. "And they're preparing for something. Temperature is rising, atmosphere is being adjusted, and I'm reading biological activity inside." "Biological activity?" Dr. Hana asked. "You mean something alive?" "More than something. Someone. These are designed for intelligent beings, and whoever is inside is starting to wake up." Professor Yu Jin Choi joined them, breathing heavily from the long walk through the ship's corridors. Despite his age, he had insisted on examining every inch of the vessel personally. "This changes everything," he said, when he saw the active cylinders. "This isn't just an archaeological site, this is a first contact situation." They reported their findings to Captain Park, who immediately called for a meeting of all senior staff. The conference room aboard the Stellar Dawn was crowded with scientists, security personnel, and ship officers. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," Captain Park said. "We have an ancient ship that's waking up, with what appears to be living beings inside sleeping chambers, and we have no idea what they want or how they'll react to finding us here." "That's correct," Dr. Hana replied. "But, Captain, this could be the most important moment in galactic history. We might be about to meet the precursors." Jin Woo, who had been monitoring the alien ship constantly, raised his hand. "There's something else. The ship's computer has been accessing our databases." Everyone turned to look at him. "What do you mean?" Captain Park asked. "It's been scanning our computer systems, not invasively, but it's definitely reading our historical records, our language databases, even our personal files. It's learning about us." So Young leaned forward. "That explains something. The symbols I've been studying have been changing. New ones appear each day, and they're starting to look more like languages I recognize." "It's trying to communicate with us," Professor Choi said with excitement. "The ship's artificial intelligence is learning our languages, so it can talk to us when its crew wakes up." Miran nodded. "The power increases, the cleaning systems, the warming of the sleeping chambers. It's all part of a revival process. The ship is preparing to wake up its crew." Taemin looked uncomfortable. "But we don't know anything about these beings. What if they're hostile? What if they see us as invaders?" "We have to take that risk," Dr. Hana said firmly. "This discovery is too important to abandon out of fear," Captain Park thought carefully. "We'll continue the investigation, but with precautions. Double the security team. Prepare the Stellar Dawn for immediate departure if necessary, and I want constant monitoring of any changes on that ship." Back on the ancient vessel, the team continued their exploration with new urgency. They knew that time was running short. Before the sleeping beings would awaken, in what appeared to be the ship's medical center, Dr. Hana made another startling discovery. The equipment was designed for beings that matched their exact physiology. The examination tables were the right size. The medical instruments seemed designed for creatures with their bone structure and organ placement. "This is impossible," she muttered, taking detailed scans of everything. Miran, working nearby, looked up from a medical scanner she was examining. "What's impossible?" "This medical equipment. It's designed for us, not just similar creatures, but for our exact species." "How is that possible if this ship is thousands of years old?" They called Professor Choi to examine their findings. The old scholar studied the medical bay for hours, taking notes and measurements. "There are 3 possible explanations," he finally said. "Either this is the most incredible coincidence in galactic history, or these beings are somehow related to us, or what?" Dr. Hana asked. "Or we're related to them." The implications of this statement hung in the air. If the precursors were somehow connected to their own species, it would mean that galactic history was completely different from what everyone believed. Jinwoo's voice came through their radios. "Everyone needs to hear this. The ship's computer just activated a communication system. It's trying to send a message." They rushed to the computer core, where screens were now displaying symbols that looked much more like their own writing systems. So Young studied the display carefully. "I can read parts of this," she said excitedly. "It's asking questions. About us, about our civilization, about how we got here." "Can you answer it?" Dr. Hana asked. "I think so. The computer has learned enough of our language that simple communication might be possible." So Young began typing responses using the ship's interface. The conversation was slow and difficult, but gradually they began to exchange basic information. The ship's computer revealed that it had been waiting for a very long time. It had been programmed to remain dormant until it detected signs of spacefaring civilization. Their arrival had triggered its awakening protocols. "How long have you been waiting?" So Young typed. The answer that appeared on the screen made everyone gasp. 50,000 years. 50,000 years. The ship and its crew had been sleeping for longer than recorded galactic history. "Ask it about the crew," Professor Choi urged. So Young typed the question. The response was even more shocking. "Crew. Revival in progress. Estimated time to full awakening, 72 hours. Crew consists of 12,000 humans in cryogenic sleep. Humans." The word appeared clearly on the screen, translated into their language. Dr. Hana stared at the display. "Humans. But that's what we call ourselves." The ship's computer seemed to pause, processing this information. Then new text appeared. "Identification protocols activated. Scanning crew DNA signatures. Please stand by." Before anyone could move, beams of light emerged from the walls and ceiling, scanning each member of the YAE team. The process was painless but thorough. After several minutes, new text appeared on the screen. "Scan complete. DNA analysis confirms you are human." The room fell silent. According to this ancient ship's computer, they were the same species as the beings who had been sleeping for 50,000 years. But that was impossible. Their civilization had only existed for a few thousand years. They had evolved on worlds far from this empty region of space. Unless everything they thought they knew about their own history was wrong. The ancient ship hummed with new energy. Systems that had been dormant for millennia were coming online one by one. In the depths of the vessel, machines began their careful work of bringing the dead back to life. Dr. Hana stood in the computer core, watching streams of data flow across the screens. The ship's artificial intelligence had been working non-stop since it confirmed their DNA was human. Now it was sharing information freely, eager to communicate with what it believed were its creator's descendants. "The ship calls itself the UES Endurance," she reported to Captain Park over the radio. UES stands for United Earthship. "Captain," Park's voice crackled back from the stellar dawn. "Earth? I've never heard of any planet by that name." Professor Choi, who was studying historical records the ship had provided, looked up from his tablet. According to these files, Earth was the original home world of humanity. The ship's records go back over 50,000 years. So Young continued her careful communication with the ship's computer. The artificial intelligence was remarkably advanced and seemed almost excited to finally have someone to talk to. It says the Endurance was one of many colony ships launched during something called the Great Exodus, she translated. They were fleeing a terrible war that was destroying human civilization. Miran was deep in the ship's engine room, studying technology that was both familiar and alien. The power systems are incredible, she reported. They're more advanced than anything we have, but I can understand the basic principles. It's like looking at tools made by master craftsmen from our own culture. The revival process was accelerating. More cylinders in the sleeping chambers showed active signs. Lights blinked, systems hummed, and the temperature throughout the ship continued to rise. Timon patrolled the corridors, noting changes everywhere. The ship is definitely preparing for something big, he reported. Sections that were sealed off yesterday are now accessible. It's like the ship is opening itself up for its crew. In the medical bay, automated systems were running diagnostics and preparing equipment. Dr. Hana watched robotic arms check and recheck every piece of medical equipment. The computer says the first crew member will wake up in about 6 hours, she announced. It's going to be one of the ship's officers. Jin Wu, monitoring from the stellar dawn, detected massive energy surges throughout the ancient vessel. Whatever's happening over there is using enormous amounts of power, he reported. I'm reading energy levels that match our entire ship's output. The ship's computer began displaying new information, historical records, star charts, and databases that painted a picture of human civilization that was completely different from anything they knew. Look at this, Professor Choi said, pointing to a star map on one of the screens. This shows dozens of human colonies across the galaxy. According to these records, humanity once controlled hundreds of star systems. So Young studied the historical files. There was a massive civil war, something called the Expansion Wars. It lasted for centuries and nearly destroyed the entire human race. The records told a story of a great civilization that had spread across the galaxy, only to tear itself apart in a conflict so devastating that it left entire star systems lifeless. The colony ships like the Endurance had been humanity's last hope for survival. The ship was programmed to find a safe place and wait, Dr. Hana read from the translated records. Wait until human civilization recovered or until they found evidence that humanity had survived somewhere else. And we triggered that protocol when we arrived, Miran added. The ship's sensors detected our technology and realized that humans had not only survived but had rebuilt civilization. As the hours passed, the team watched in fascination as the ancient ship prepared for its crew's awakening. Corridors filled with fresh air, water systems activated, food preparation areas came online. The ship's computer began asking more detailed questions about the current state of the galaxy. It wanted to know about governments, technology levels, and the locations of human colonies. It's confused by our answers, So Young reported. We keep telling it about different species and civilizations, but it expects us to talk about human worlds and human governments. Professor Choi had been studying the genetic data the ship had collected during its scans. I think I understand the confusion, he said slowly. According to this ship's records, humanity was the dominant species in the galaxy 50,000 years ago. It doesn't know about any other intelligent races. But that's impossible, Dr. Hana said. We know about dozens of intelligent species. Our own worlds are home to multiple races. Are they? Professor Choi asked quietly. Or are they all descendants of those original human colonies? The question hung in the air like a challenge to everything they thought they knew. The ship's computer seemed to sense their confusion and began displaying more detailed genetic analysis. The data showed that the DNA signatures of the research team matched perfectly with the sleeping crew's genetic patterns. Not similar, identical. This says we're not just the same species, Miran said, studying the readouts. We're from the same genetic population, like we're all part of one big family. Taman had been quiet for most of the day, but now he spoke up. What happened to the other races? If humans were the only intelligent species 50,000 years ago, where did everyone else come from? The ship's computer responded to this question by displaying evolutionary charts and genetic drift models. The answer was both simple and shocking. It says that over 50,000 years the isolated human colonies evolved differently, So Young translated. Changes in environment, radiation, and genetic isolation caused humans to develop into what we now think of as different species. The implications were staggering. Every intelligent race they knew might be human descendants who had evolved and changed over millennia. The great diversity of galactic civilization might all spring from a single source. Jin Woo's voice broke into their discussions. Captain, I'm reading massive activity in the cylinder chambers. Something big is happening. They rushed to the sleeping chambers and found that one of the cylinders was now glowing brightly. Steam rose from vents around its base and mechanical systems hummed with activity. The revival process has begun, Miran confirmed, reading her instruments. Whoever is in there will be conscious within the hour. Dr. Hana felt her heart racing. They were about to meet someone who had been alive when humanity ruled the galaxy, someone who had witnessed the fall of a great civilization and had slept through the rise of everything they now knew. What do we say to them? She asked. How do we explain what the galaxy has become? Professor Choi looked at the glowing cylinder. We tell them the truth, that humanity didn't die, that it survived and grew and became something even greater than it was before. The ship's computer displayed a new message. Revival of Command Officer Hyun-Soo Jang in progress. Estimated time to full consciousness 43 minutes. Recommend medical personnel stand by. 43 minutes until they met the first human from the ancient past. 43 minutes until they learned the truth about their own origins and the real history of galactic civilization. The Endurance continued its preparations. Medical systems activated. The ship's atmosphere adjusted to optimal levels. Translation software prepared to bridge the gap between ancient and modern languages. As they waited, the research team realized that they were about to witness one of the most important moments in galactic history, the awakening of the past. The return of humanity's ancestors. The revelation that would change everything they thought they knew about themselves and their place in the universe. The cylinder's glow grew brighter. Inside, after 50,000 years of dreamless sleep, Commander Hyun-Soo Jang was beginning to wake up to a universe completely different from the one he had left behind. A universe where humanity's children had inherited the stars. The cylinder opened with a soft hiss of escaping gases. Steam rose into the air as the life support systems completed their work. Inside, a figure began to move slowly, like someone waking from the deepest sleep imaginable. Dr. Hana and her team stood at a respectful distance watching as the first human in 50,000 years returned to consciousness. Medical monitors showed vital signs growing stronger by the minute. The figure inside the cylinder was clearly human, but different from them in subtle ways. Taller, with broader shoulders and more muscular build. His skin had a pale, almost translucent quality from the long sleep. Dark hair was cropped short in a military style. Commander Hyun-Soo Jang opened his eyes. At first, he just stared at the ceiling, blinking slowly as his mind tried to process being awake again. Then his training took over. He sat up carefully, his movements precise despite the long hibernation. When he saw the research team watching him, he froze. His eyes moved from person to person, taking in their clothes, their equipment, their faces. He said something in a language they didn't recognize, though it sounded almost familiar. The translation system should work, So Young whispered. The ship's computer has been learning our language. Commander Jang climbed carefully out of the cylinder, his legs shaky from the long sleep. He was wearing a simple gray uniform with symbols they didn't recognize. When he spoke again, the ship's speakers translated his words. Who are you? What ship is this? What happened to the war? His voice was deep and carried the authority of someone used to command. Despite his confusion, he moved with the confidence of a military officer. Dr. Hana stepped forward slowly, her hands visible and empty. My name is Dr. Hana Kim. We're researchers from the Galactic Archaeological Survey. You're on the UES Endurance. The war ended long ago. Commander Jang studied her face carefully. You speak strangely, but you look human. How long was I asleep? About 50,000 years, Professor Choi said gently. The commander's face went pale. He sat down heavily on the edge of the cylinder. 50,000 years? The mission protocol said we would wake when we detected human civilization or when Earth sent recall signals. We triggered the awakening, Miran explained. Our presence activated your ship's sensors. Commander Jiang looked around the chamber, seeing his sleeping crew members in their cylinders. Many now showed signs of beginning revival. Are there others? Other humans? Did Earth survive? The research team exchanged glances. This was the difficult part. Commander, Dr. Hana said carefully, we need to explain what happened to the galaxy while you slept. It's complicated. Over the next hour, they tried to tell him about the current state of galactic civilization. They spoke of the many worlds, the different species, the great diversity of cultures and governments that now existed across the stars. Commander Jiang listened with growing confusion. But what about the human colonies, the Empire? What happened to our people? That's what we're trying to tell you, Professor Choi said patiently. Your people didn't disappear. They survived and grew and became us. The commander shook his head. I don't understand. You say you're human, but you speak of alien races and foreign governments. Where are the human worlds? So Young pulled up star charts on her tablet, showing him maps of current galactic civilization. These are all human worlds, Commander. Or, rather, they're worlds settled by the descendants of human colonies. She showed him genetic data that the ship's computer had compiled. Over 50,000 years, the isolated human populations evolved. Environmental pressures, radiation, genetic drift, they all combined to create the diversity you see now. Commander Jiang studied the data with the analytical mind of a military officer. Slowly, understanding began to dawn on his face. You're saying that all the species in the current galaxy are descended from human colonies? Most of them, Dr. Hana confirmed. The ship's computer analyzed our DNA. We're genetically human, just as you are. We're your descendants. The commander was quiet for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was filled with wonder. We succeeded then. Humanity survived. More than survived, Miran said. Humanity became the foundation for an entire galactic civilization. More cylinders were beginning to open. Other crew members were starting to wake up. Commander Jiang stood and walked to one of them, helping a woman climb out carefully. Dr. Yunbi Song, ship's medical officer, he said as the woman oriented herself. The translation system immediately began working on her speech as well. Dr. Song was smaller than the commander, with intelligent eyes and gentle hands. She examined the research team with a medical professional's careful attention. These are descendants of human colonies, Commander Jiang explained to her. The mission succeeded, but in ways we never imagined. More crew members were waking up. Each revival brought new conversations, new explanations, and new wonder at what the galaxy had become. Master Sergeant Wu Jin Lim was the third to wake. He was a grizzled military veteran with scars on his hands and a way of moving that spoke of many battles. When he heard the explanation of what had happened, his reaction was practical. So we won the war by outlasting it, he said with a grunt. Not the victory I expected, but I'll take it. The ancient humans were adapting quickly to the new reality. Their military training had prepared them for unexpected situations, and they approached this ultimate surprise with remarkable calm. Show me everything, Commander Jiang requested. I want to understand what our sacrifice accomplished. Over the following hours, they gave him access to their historical databases. He studied the rise of galactic civilization with the fascination of someone seeing their distant children's achievements for the first time. Incredible, he said as he reviewed charts showing trade routes that spanned hundreds of star systems. We dreamed of human expansion across the galaxy, but this is beyond our wildest hopes. Dr. Yunbi was more interested in the biological aspects. She studied the genetic variations that had created the modern galactic species with scientific enthusiasm. Evolution continued our work, she marveled. Humanity didn't just survive in one form. It became 1,000 different forms, each adapted to different worlds and different ways of life. Master Sergeant Lim was fascinated by the military technologies they showed him. "Your weapons are more advanced than ours," he admitted. "But the tactics are still recognizably human. You fight like we fought, think like we thought." As more crew members awakened, the ship filled with activity. The ancient humans were eager to learn about everything that had happened during their long sleep. They asked about art, science, politics, and philosophy. "What happened to Earth?" Dr. Song asked during one of their conversations. The research team looked at each other uncertainly. "We don't know," Dr. Hana admitted. "In our historical records, there's no mention of a planet called Earth. It might have been destroyed in the war, or the location might have been lost over time." Commander Jiang's expression grew sad. "Earth was our home. All of humanity came from there originally. If it's truly lost, maybe it's not lost," Professor Choi suggested. "Maybe it's still out there, waiting to be rediscovered. With the Endurance's navigation data, we might be able to find it." The possibility brought new hope to the awakening crew. The idea that they might return home, or at least visit the place where humanity began, gave them a goal beyond just survival. "There's something else." Jinwoo's voice came through the radio from the stellar dawn. "I'm detecting other ships approaching our location. Multiple vessels coming from different directions." Commander Jiang's military instincts activated immediately. "Hostile?" "Unknown," Jinwoo replied. "But they're definitely interested in what we've found here." The commander turned to his awakening crew. "How many of us are conscious?" 12 so far, Dr. Song reported, "with more waking up every hour." "Then we prepare for contact," he decided. "It seems our return to the galaxy won't be a quiet one." Dr. Hana felt a thrill of anticipation mixed with nervousness. The awakening of the Endurance was about to become known throughout the galaxy. The return of humanity's ancestors would change everything. The ancient humans were about to meet their descendants face to face on a galactic stage. The approaching ships arrived within hours of each other. Through the viewports of the stellar dawn, Captain Park watched as vessels from a dozen different worlds took positions around the ancient ship. Word had spread fast through galactic communication networks about the discovery of a precursor vessel. Commander Jiang stood on the bridge of the Endurance, which was now fully powered and operational. Around him, his crew worked at stations they remembered from before their long sleep. The ship's systems responded to their commands as if no time had passed at all. 47 ships now in the area, reported Lieutenant Yuna Park, the Endurance's sensor operator who had awakened that morning. They represent at least 15 different species and governments. Dr. Hana watched the commander study the tactical display. Even after 50,000 years, military thinking remained the same. He was evaluating threats and opportunities with the same careful analysis his ancestors had used. "They're not taking aggressive positions," he noted. "They seem more curious than hostile." "They want to know what we are," Dr. Song said. She had been monitoring the communications between the various ships. "The translations are confusing, but they keep asking about precursors and ancient artifacts." Commander Jiang smiled grimly. "They think we're museum pieces." Professor Choi, who had been working with the ship's historical databases, looked up from his screens. "Commander, I think you need to see this. The ship's records contain navigation data for the original human colonies. I've been comparing them to our current star charts." He displayed a holographic map showing both ancient and modern stellar territories. The overlay was remarkable. "Look at this. The original human colony worlds match exactly with the current centers of galactic civilization. New Seoul, the capital of the Eastern Trade Alliance, that was originally called New Earth Colony 7. The Drakhan homeworld was listed in your records as Mining Colony 43. More crew members gathered around the display as Professor Choi continued his presentation. "Every major world in our current galaxy was originally a human colony. When those colonies lost contact with Earth and each other, they developed independently. Over thousands of generations, they became what we now think of as separate species." Master Sergeant Lim, who had been skeptical of the whole situation, studied the data carefully. "You're saying that every alien we might meet out there is actually our descendant?" That's exactly what the evidence shows, Dr. Hanna confirmed. The genetic markers don't lie. You are our ancestors. Commander Jiang absorbed this information with the calm of a career military officer, but his voice carried deep emotion when he spoke. We thought we were saving the last remnants of humanity. We never imagined we were preserving the seeds of an entire galactic civilization. The first formal communication from the gathered fleet arrived as a broad-spectrum transmission directed at all 3 ships. So Young worked with the Endurance's communication systems to translate and respond. They want to send diplomatic representatives, she reported. The message is from someone calling himself High Counselor Jae Sung Moon of the Galactic Federation. The Galactic Federation? Commander Jiang asked. It's the largest interstellar government, Dr. Hanna explained. It includes most of the major worlds and species. And now they want to meet the precursors, Dr. Song added with amusement. They have no idea they're about to meet their own great-great-great-grandparents. Commander Jiang made a decision. We'll receive their representatives. It's time the galaxy learned the truth about its history. The meeting was arranged to take place aboard the Endurance. The ancient ship's conference room was prepared for what would be one of the most important diplomatic encounters in galactic history. High Counselor Moon arrived with a delegation representing multiple species. He was tall and elegant, with the kind of refined features that spoke of centuries of genetic optimization. His advisors included a blue-skinned humanoid from the Outer Rim territories, a tall, thin being with elongated limbs from the desert worlds, and several others. When they entered the conference room and saw Commander Jiang and his crew, the surprise was visible on their faces. You look remarkably similar to the Terran species, High Counselor Moon observed through his translator. Terran? Commander Jiang asked. The species that makes up about 30% of Federation citizens, one of the advisors explained. We assumed you were a related species, possibly from an isolated colony. Commander Jiang exchanged glances with his crew. In a sense, that's exactly what we are. The next few hours were dedicated to the most extraordinary history lesson ever given. Using the Endurance's databases, the ancient humans showed their descendants the true story of galactic civilization. They displayed records of the original Earth, with its blue oceans and green continents. They showed the expansion of humanity across the stars, the great cities that spanned entire planets, the technologies that had made interstellar civilization possible. This is Earth, Commander Jiang said, showing them images of humanity's home. Charles. This is where all of us came from originally. The delegation listened with growing amazement as the story unfolded. The golden age of human expansion, the discovery of faster-than-light travel, the establishment of colonies on hundreds of worlds. Then came the darker chapters, the expansion wars, the conflict that had torn human civilization apart, brother fighting against brother across entire star systems, worlds reduced to ash, entire populations wiped out. The war lasted for centuries, Dr. Song explained. It destroyed most of human civilization. The colony ships like the Endurance were humanity's last hope for survival. We were programmed to find safe places to wait, Commander Jiang continued, to sleep until the war was over and humanity could rebuild. We never imagined that the colonies would survive and grow without us. High Counselor Moon looked stunned. You're saying that all Federation species are descended from this ancient human civilization? The genetic evidence is conclusive, Professor Choi confirmed, showing them the DNA analysis. Over 50,000 years, the isolated human colonies adapted to their environments. Different worlds, different pressures, different evolutionary paths, but the same basic genetic template. One of the advisors, the blue-skinned humanoid, spoke up. My people have legends about the first ones, the ancestors who came from the stars. We always thought they were myths. Not myths, Master Sergeant Lim said with a smile. History. The implications were staggering. Every species in the galaxy shared a common origin. Every culture, every government, every philosophy could trace its roots back to the original human expansion. What happened to Earth? High Counselor Moon asked. Commander Jiang's expression grew sad. We don't know. Our records end with the launch of the colony ships. Earth might have been destroyed in the war, or it might have survived and rebuilt. Without navigation data, we lost contact with everything. But now we have navigation data, Dr. Hanna pointed out. The Endurance's computers contain the original coordinates for Earth and all the colony worlds. The room went quiet as everyone absorbed what this meant. You could find Earth again, High Counselor Moon said slowly. We could find humanity's home, Commander Jiang confirmed. The meeting continued for hours. The delegation asked countless questions about the ancient technology, the original colonies, and the history that had been lost to time. The crew of the Endurance shared everything they could, eager to reconnect with their descendants. As the IZ session concluded, High Counselor Moon made a formal statement. This changes everything we thought we knew about galactic history. If what you've told us is true, then we are all one people, one family, separated by time and space, but united by our common heritage. Commander Jiang nodded. That's exactly what we are. And now, after 50,000 years, the family is reunited. The news spread through the galaxy faster than light itself. Within days, every world, every government, every species was talking about the return of the precursors and the revelation of their true heritage. Humanity hadn't conquered the galaxy. It had become the galaxy. And now the sleeping ancestors had awakened to find their children had inherited the stars. The greatest family reunion in history was about to begin. 6 months after the awakening of the Endurance, the galaxy was a different place. The revelation that all intelligent species shared a common human origin had transformed politics, philosophy, and the very way beings thought about themselves and their place in the universe. Dr. Hanna stood on the observation deck of the massive space station that had been constructed around the ancient ship. Representatives from hundreds of worlds had come to meet their ancestors and learn about their forgotten history. The Endurance had become the most important place in the galaxy. Commander Jiang joined her at the viewport, looking out at the fleet of ships that surrounded them. Vessels from every corner of galactic civilization had made the journey to this remote location that was now being called the reunion point. Any regrets about waking us up? He asked with a smile. Dr. Hanna laughed. Only that it took us so long to find you. The past months had been a whirlwind of activity. The crew of the Endurance, now fully awakened, had shared their knowledge freely with their descendants. Ancient technologies were being studied and adapted. Historical records were being compiled into new databases. Most importantly, the navigation data for Earth had been carefully analyzed and confirmed. The expedition to Earth launches tomorrow, Commander Jiang said. Are you ready? Dr. Hanna nodded. She had been chosen as the chief scientist for the mission to find humanity's original homeworld. After 50,000 years, they were going to attempt to return to the place where it all began. The whole galaxy is watching, she replied. If Earth still exists, if there are still humans there who remember the old ways, then we'll have come full circle, Commander Jiang finished. The diplomatic implications had been enormous. The Galactic Federation had been restructured to acknowledge the shared heritage of all its member species. Wars had ended as former enemies realized they were fighting their own cousins. Trade agreements had been rewritten. Cultural exchanges had flourished. Dr. Song approached them, carrying a tablet filled with the latest reports from around the galaxy. The genetic therapy programs are showing remarkable results, she announced. Beings who want to can now modify their DNA to more closely match the original human template. It had been one of the most unexpected developments. Many individuals from various species had chosen to undergo treatments that would make them more physically similar to the ancient humans. Not because they were ashamed of their evolved forms, but because they wanted to connect more directly with their heritage. How many have chosen the treatments? Dr. Hanna asked. Millions, Dr. Song replied. But just as many have chosen to celebrate their evolved differences. The diversity that developed over 50,000 years is seen as humanity's greatest achievement. Master. Sergeant Lim had been working with military leaders from across the galaxy, sharing tactical knowledge and training methods. Despite the vast changes in technology, the fundamentals of strategy and leadership had remained surprisingly consistent. The young ones learn fast, he had reported. They fight like humans because they are humans, no matter what they look like. Now, Professor Choi had become the galaxy's foremost expert on pre-war human civilization. He spent his days working with linguists and historians, helping them understand how ancient human culture had influenced the development of modern galactic society. Language is the key, he had explained to Dr. Hana. Every major language family in the galaxy can trace its roots back to the languages spoken on the original colony ships. We're not just genetically related. We're culturally connected across 50,000 years. So Young had been instrumental in establishing communication protocols between the ancient humans and their descendants. Her work had made possible the vast cultural exchange that was transforming galactic civilization. The stories are the most amazing part, she had told the crew. Every species has legends about the first ones, the star ancestors, the ones who came before. They were all remembering us, even after all this time. The approaching Earth expedition represented the culmination of everything they had learned. A fleet of the most advanced ships in the galaxy, carrying representatives from dozens of worlds, was preparing to make the journey to humanity's birthplace. If Earth had survived, if human civilization had rebuilt itself there, the meeting would be historic beyond measure, the original humanity encountering its far-flung children who had evolved and grown across the galaxy. If Earth was gone, destroyed in the ancient war or lost to time, they would at least be able to honor the memory of the world that had given birth to galactic civilization. Captain Park wants to speak with you, Jinwoo announced over the station's communication system. They found Captain Park in the Expedition Command Center, surrounded by navigation charts and tactical displays. The Stellar Dawn would be leading the Earth expedition, its crew having earned the honor through their role in the original discovery. Final preparations are complete, he reported. We have 17 ships ready for departure, carrying diplomatic teams from every major government and species in the galaxy. Commander Zhang studied the route they would take. According to the Endurance's navigation data, Earth was located in a region of space that was now considered the neutral zone, an area avoided by most galactic governments due to dangerous stellar phenomena. The journey will take 3 weeks, Captain Park continued. The stellar coordinates match our star charts, but the system is surrounded by radiation fields that make long-range scanning impossible. We won't know what we'll find until we get there, Dr. Hana added. The launch ceremony. The next day was broadcast to every world in the galaxy. Billions of beings watched as the Earth expedition departed the reunion point, carrying with them the hopes and dreams of an entire civilization. As the fleet entered hyperspace, Dr. Hana sat in the Stellar Dawn's observation lounge with Commander Zhang and several other expedition members. The ancient human had become a close friend over the past months, and she had grown to admire his steady leadership and adaptability. "What do you hope we'll find?" she asked him. Commander Zhang was quiet for a long moment. "Part of me hopes Earth survived and thrived, that we'll find humans who never forgot their history and who have been waiting for their children to come home. And the other part of you?" "The other part of me already found what I was looking for. When we went to sleep 50,000 years ago, we thought humanity was dying. We thought we were preserving the last remnants of our species. Now I know we were preserving the seeds of something greater than we ever imagined." 3 weeks later, the expedition fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of a yellow star system. Long-range sensors immediately began scanning for signs of planetary activity. "I'm reading 9 planets," Jinwoo reported from his sensor station. "The third planet from the star matches Earth's original parameters: oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere, liquid water, evidence of extensive biological activity. And artificial structures," added Miran. "Massive cities, orbital installations, spacecraft in the system. There's definitely a technological civilization there." Captain Park ordered the fleet to approach slowly, broadcasting friendship messages on all frequencies. The response came within minutes, a voice speaking in a language that was clearly related to the ancient human tongue, but evolved and changed by millennia of development. The translation systems worked, and the message was clear. "Welcome home, children of Earth. We have been waiting for you." The Earth expedition had found not just a surviving world, but a thriving human civilization that had rebuilt itself from the ashes of the ancient war. The humans of Earth had survived, grown, and maintained their history. They had been watching the galaxy, waiting for the day when their lost children would return. As the fleet approached Earth, Dr. Hana felt tears in her eyes. After 50,000 years after evolution and expansion and the rise of galactic civilization, humanity's family was finally complete again. The children of Earth had come home, bringing with them the gift of a galaxy filled with their descendants, their cultures, their achievements. The ancient dream of human expansion among the stars had not just succeeded, it had exceeded every possible hope. Commander Jiang stood beside her as Earth grew larger in the viewport. The blue oceans and green continents were exactly as they appeared in the ancient records. Humanity's birthplace, still beautiful, still alive, still home. "We did it," he said quietly. "We saved our people." "You did more than that?" Dr. Hana replied. "You gave birth to a civilization that spans the galaxy, and now, after all this time, we're all together again." The greatest family reunion in the history of the universe was about to begin,